The self-sufficient garden system. Soil isn't just dirt. Before anyone planted the first seed, it was already there. A living system packed with billions of organisms that would decide whether a family ate well or went hungry. Most modern gardeners figure out their soil is dead only after years of wondering why nothing grows right. John Seymour understood what industrial agriculture forgot. You don't feed the plants, you feed the soil, and the soil feeds the plants. Building living soil. A compost pile needs 4 things working together: brown materials, dry leaves, straw, anything carbon-rich; green materials, fresh grass clippings, vegetable scraps, the nitrogen sources; water to keep the organisms alive; and air to stop the whole thing from going anaerobic and smelling like a backed-up sewer. Get those 4 elements right and something remarkable happens. 3 to 6 months later, your kitchen scraps and yard waste turn into dark, crumbly stuff that smells like a forest floor after rain. Rich, clean, alive. That's fertility you can hold in your hands. The farmers who made it through the Depression knew this cold. They composted everything: coffee grounds, eggshells, wilted lettuce, grass clippings, fallen leaves. All of it went in the pile. All of it became next year's garden. If you kept chickens or rabbits, their manure was worth its weight in gold. High nitrogen, perfect for leafy growth. But you had to compost it first, because fresh manure burns everything it touches. The difference between rich soil and poor soil isn't complicated. It's what you put in before you ask anything out. The deep bed revolution. By the 70s, most home gardens looked like miniature industrial farms. Long rows with wide paths between them, wide enough for tractors and tillers, but human feet had no business being there. Every time you walk on garden soil, you pack it down. Air pockets collapse, water can't drain, roots can't penetrate. Your yields drop by half. Deep beds changed everything. Instead of rows, you build raised beds 4 feet wide as long as you need them. 4 feet is the magic number. You can reach the center from either side without stepping on the soil. Once you fill those beds with compost and plant them, you never walk on them again. The soil stays loose. Roots go deep without hitting compacted layers. And because you're not wasting space on walkways, you can plant much denser. Traditional row gardens waste 50–60% of their space on paths. Deep bed systems dedicate 90% of the space to actual growing area. More space means more food. When you plant in offset patterns, spacing plants like hexagon centers, you fit 2 to 3 times more plants in the same area. The mature leaves form a living mulch that shades out weeds and holds moisture. You water less, weed less, harvest more. The 30-to-1 rule. What most people throw away, experienced farmers call future fertility. Kitchen scraps, garden clippings, animal bedding, fallen leaves, all of it contains nutrients that cycle back into the soil. A good compost pile isn't random, it's balanced. Too much nitrogen and it reeks of ammonia. Too much carbon and it sits there for years. Too dry and the microorganisms die. Too wet and it turns into slime. The ratio that works is roughly 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by weight. Dry leaves, straw, shredded paper give you carbon. Fresh grass, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds give you nitrogen. Layer it like lasagna. Brown, green, brown, green. Keep it as damp as a wrung-out sponge. Turn it every 2 weeks to add oxygen and speed things up. When the pile hits 140 degrees, the microorganisms are cooking. At that temperature, weed seeds die. Pathogens break down. In a few months, everything becomes rich. Dark compost that smells sweet and earthy. Spread 2 to 4 inches of finished compost over your beds, and even terrible clay or sand transforms into productive soil. Better drainage in clay, better water retention in sand, and billions of beneficial organisms working around the clock to feed your plants. The investment is time and effort. The return is fertility that lasts for years. Making space work. Soil is the foundation, But foundation alone doesn't feed a family? What matters next is how you use your space, how you arrange your beds, choose your crops, plan for continuous harvest. A garden that produces everything in July and nothing in November isn't going to keep you fed through the year. Space has always been the limiting factor for small-scale growers. You can't expand your land, you can't move somewhere bigger. What you have is what you work with. Deep beds solve the space problem without needing more land. 4 feet wide means you reach the center from either side. You never step on the growing area. The soil structure stays intact season after season. Conventional gardens waste half their space on walkways. Deep bed gardens use narrow paths, just wide enough to kneel beside the bed. Everything else produces food. Plant dents in offset hexagonal patterns, and the mature plants form a canopy. Weeds can't get established. Moisture doesn't evaporate as fast. The microclimate under the leaves stays cooler in summer, warmer in spring and fall. Crops that actually feed you. Not all vegetables are equal when it comes to feeding a family. Some crops produce massive calories from tiny space, others take up huge areas and give you almost nothing. Potatoes are the backbone. Grown deep or under mulch, a single square foot produces 10 to 15 pounds of food, and those potatoes store for 6 to 8 months in a cool, dark place. Beans, bush, and pole varieties both are essential for different reasons. They fix nitrogen through bacteria in their root nodules. They improve your soil while producing protein-rich food. Pole beans climb vertical supports, producing for months from just a few square feet. Tomatoes. If you pick indeterminate varieties that keep growing until frost, produce 20 to 30 pounds per plant over a season. Stake them high, keep them watered, harvest daily through summer and fall. Winter squash and pumpkins are space hogs, but they produce huge amounts of calories and store for months without refrigeration. You can train them up trellises or let them sprawl where nothing else is growing. Leafy greens, kale, chard, lettuce, spinach are fast and nutrient-dense. Use the cut-and-come-again method. Harvest outer leaves, let the center keep producing. One planting feeds you for months. Then there are the perennials. Asparagus, rhubarb, Jerusalem artichokes, almost zero maintenance once established. They produce for 10 to 20 years from a single planting. That's the ultimate long-term investment in food security. The perennial advantage. Most gardeners think in annual cycles. Plant in spring, harvest in summer and fall, start over. But the smartest approach to gardening has always involved perennials, because that's where real efficiency lives. An asparagus crown planted in good soil produces spears every spring for 15 to 20 years. Plant once, fertilize once a year. Every April, when supermarket asparagus costs $6 a pound, yours comes up free. Rhubarb is even easier, thrives in cold climates where many crops struggle. Once established, needs almost no attention. Harvest the stalks in spring and early summer, and the plant keeps producing year after year. Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes, are practically indestructible. Plant the tubers once, and they spread on their own. Some people call them invasive, but if you want low-maintenance carbs that need zero fertilizer and zero pest control, they're perfect. The beauty of perennials is that they don't require replanting. You don't start seeds indoors or buy transplants every spring. They just come back. When time and labor are limited, that efficiency matters more than most people realize. Timing is everything. Design determines your space. Crop selection determines what you grow, but timing determines whether you eat well in April or only in August. A garden that produces everything at once then goes dormant for 10 months isn't designed for survival. It's designed for abundance followed by scarcity. And that's not good enough. The biggest mistake most gardeners make is planting everything at once in spring, then watching their garden sit empty 10 months of the year. They get a glut in July and August, nothing in April, May, September, October. Succession planting solves this. Instead of sowing an entire packet of lettuce seeds in one day, plant a small row every 2 weeks throughout the season. As one planting gets harvested, the next one's already growing, ready in a few weeks. Lettuce, radishes, spinach, turnips all mature in 30 to 60 days. You can get 3 to 5 harvests from the same bed between spring and fall if you keep replanting as soon as one crop finishes. If you look at the numbers, it works like this. Plant lettuce April 1st, harvest late May. Plant again April 15th, ready mid-June. Plant every 2 weeks through August, and you've got fresh lettuce until October. Same principle works for radishes, which mature in just 25 days. Or plant a short row, harvest it, plant again in the same spot. The bed never sits empty. Production never stops. Layering crops in time and space. Succession planting keeps the same crop coming continuously. Relay planting and interplanting use space even better by growing multiple crops in the same bed at the same time. Relay planting means starting your next crop before the current one's harvested. Plant lettuce seedlings between rows of peas in late spring. By the time the peas finish in early summer, the lettuce is already established, ready to take over that space. Interplanting means growing fast-maturing crops like radishes or lettuce between slow-growing crops like tomatoes or cabbage. The fast crop gets harvested and gone before the slow crop needs the space. Plant radishes between cabbage transplants in early spring. Radishes mature in 4 weeks. Harvested before the cabbage plants spread out and need the room. Nothing wasted. Every square inch produces something. The principle is straightforward. Time and space are your limiting factors. Manage both intelligently, and you double or triple your yield from the same bed without expanding your land. Extending the season. Most climates have 4 to 5 month growing seasons. With cold frames, row covers, and simple hoop houses, you extend that to 9 or 10 months. A cold frame is just a bottomless box with a transparent lid. Place it over a garden bed in early spring, and the trapped sunlight warms the soil. You plant 4 to 6 weeks earlier than usual. In fall, use the same cold frame to protect lettuce, spinach, kale from early frosts. Crops that normally die in October keep producing through November and December. Row covers are even simpler. Lightweight fabric draped over wire hoops. They protect plants from frost-wind pests. Plant cold, hardy greens in late summer, cover them in October, harvest fresh salad all winter in many climates. Hoop houses are more permanent but still cheap. PVC pipe bent into arches, covered with greenhouse plastic. Inside, temperatures stay 10 to 20 degrees warmer than outside. You grow spinach, lettuce, Asian greens through winter while your neighbors buy imported produce at the supermarket. The difference between a 4-month garden and a 10-month garden isn't luck or climate, it's strategy. Understanding the growing season isn't fixed by the calendar, it's extended by effort and simple infrastructure. Closing the loop, you've got soil fertility, efficient design, continuous planting, and season extension. But there's still one piece missing. A system that depends on buying fertilizer and feed every year isn't truly self-sufficient. It's just a slightly more efficient version of dependence. What makes a complete food system is closing the loop, turning waste into fertility, scraps into protein, making the system feed itself. 3 chickens in a small run attached to your garden give you nearly 1,000 eggs per year. They produce enough manure to fertilize 100 square feet of garden beds. And they eat all your kitchen scraps, weeds, garden pests. The beauty of chickens is that they transform waste into value. Vegetable peelings, stale bread, wilted lettuce, bolted greens, all of it goes in the chicken run. The chickens eat it, turn it into eggs and manure. You compost the manure and spread it on your beds. It's a closed loop where nothing leaves the system. Everything cycles back. A small coop. 4 by 6 feet, houses 3 to 5 chickens comfortably. Feed them kitchen scraps and a little grain. They forage for insects, eat weeds, scratch through compost piles, spreading and aerating the material. Their manure is high nitrogen but has to be composted first. Fresh chicken manure is too hot and burns plants. Composted for 3 to 6 months, it becomes one of the best fertilizers available. The rabbit advantage. Now, If chickens aren't your thing, rabbits are even more space efficient. A hutch 4 by 2 feet houses a breeding pair. Rabbits produce 5 to 6 pounds of meat every 8 weeks from a space smaller than a closet. The real advantage is their manure. Unlike chicken manure, rabbit droppings go directly on the garden without composting. It's cold manure that won't burn plants. Rake them out of the hutch, spread them on your beds the same day. Rabbits eat kitchen scraps, grass, hay, vegetable trimmings. Got a lawn? Feed them fresh grass clippings? Got a garden? Feed them carrot tops, lettuce thinnings, bolted greens. They eat what you'd otherwise throw away, and they're quiet. No crowing at dawn. No noise complaints from neighbors. You can raise rabbits in a suburban backyard and no one knows they're there. If we look at what 2 breeding rabbits actually produce, you're talking about 6 to 8 offspring every 2 months. Raise those offspring for 8 to 10 weeks, harvest for meat, and each rabbit dresses out at 2 to 3 pounds. And it's not a solution for everyone. But for people who need protein and have limited space, rabbits are efficient in ways few other animals match. The strangest livestock. But here's something most people never consider. Red wiggler worms are one of the most productive livestock with practically zero investment. A worm lays a capsule every 7 days. Each capsule hatches 2 to 10 baby worms. In 3 months, those worms are adults, reproducing. The population doubles again, doubles again. What do you sell? First, live worms. Fishermen buy them for bait at $10 to $20 per pound. Other gardeners buy them to start their own worm farms. Second, worm castings. The excrement worms produce as they eat organic matter. It's the best organic fertilizer available and sells at a premium at garden centers and farmers markets. Initial investment is absurdly low. Buy half a kilo of worms for $20. Put them in a wooden box with soil, dry leaves, kitchen scraps. The worms eat your organic waste and turn it into valuable humus. You're turning trash into cash while producing worms that multiply on their own. You don't need special space or infrastructure. A 1 meter by 1 meter box houses thousands of worms. Keep it in your garage, a tool shed, under a tree in your garden. Worms make no noise. They don't smell if managed right. They don't bother anyone. Perfect for apartments or small spaces. Maintenance is minimal. Add scraps every 2 or 3 days. Maintain the right humidity. That's it. Start small. Build smart. You've got the principles. Soil fertility through composting. Space efficiency through deep bed design. Continuous harvest through succession planting. Closed-loop sustainability through integrated animals. But principles are only useful if they translate into actual food on the table. That's where most people fail, not because the system doesn't work, but because they try to do everything at once and burn out before the first harvest. The mistake most people make is starting too big. They imagine a half-acre garden and burn out after 2 weeks of digging and planting. The smarter approach is to start with 100 square feet. 2 beds, each 4 feet wide and 12 feet long. That's it. In those 2 beds, planted intensively using these methods, you can grow enough lettuce, tomatoes, beans, greens to significantly cut your grocery bill. More importantly, you learn the rhythms of planting, harvesting, composting without being overwhelmed. Once those 2 beds are productive and you understand how to manage them, add 2 more beds next season. Then 2 more after that. Within 3 years, you've got a garden producing most of your vegetables without requiring more labor than you can sustainably provide. The real return. The average American family spends over $10,000 a year on groceries. A big chunk of that is fresh produce you could grow at home for a fraction of the cost. Transition to this kind of system, and that $10,000 becomes $2,000 spent on seeds, compost materials, a few chickens. The difference isn't just financial. It's about resilience. Knowing that no matter what happens to supply chains or food prices, you can feed yourself. A well-managed garden with integrated animals produces 70 to 80% of a family's vegetable needs and significant protein through eggs and, if desired, meat from rabbits or chickens. The return on investment isn't immediate. First year, you build soil and infrastructure. Second year, you start seeing serious production. By the third year, the garden's fully established. Perennials are producing alongside annuals. But the real return isn't measured in dollars saved. It's measured in food security. Knowing that even if grocery stores are empty or prices double overnight, you can still eat. The choice ahead. The original Victory Gardens were born out of necessity during wartime, when families across America turned their backyards into productive food systems. They produced 40% of all vegetables consumed in the country, not through massive industrial farms, but through small plots where ordinary families grew their own food. Today, we're facing different challenges. Food prices have doubled in 5 years. Supply chains collapse overnight. And I've watched people spend over 10 grand a year on groceries that could be grown in their own backyard for a fraction of that cost. The system worked then because it was based on principles that can't fail. Healthy soil produces healthy plants. Healthy plants produce abundant food. Abundant food produces security. The choice in front of you is straightforward. You can depend on systems you don't control, or you can build systems that depend on you. Soil fertility, space-efficient design, high-yield crops, succession planting, season extension, integrated animals. These aren't abstract principles, they're practical tools that have kept people fed through the hardest times. The time to start isn't when the crisis arrives. It's before it does. When you still have the luxury of learning from mistakes and building systems that'll sustain you for years to come. The seeds you plant today determine whether you thrive or struggle tomorrow.